Hi, my name is Madeline. I have my undergrad in social work and my master's in human behavior psychology. And today I'm going to talk about the value in getting to know yourself and methods of how you can get to know yourself as well as getting to know the people around you. Humans are creatures that value connection. Connection is actually the way that we have survived and created such massive societies and culture, and that's just how we became the top predators. The way that we communicate, the way that we interact with one another, these are all so imperative again to our survival that it makes sense why we got lost in thinking that we needed to be like everybody else in order to be loved and be accepted and to gain approval from the people we love. I believe, this is my opinion, that big companies and maybe people in power have taken advantage of humans' desperate need to connect, that they have put in media, in advertising, anywhere you can see that you have to be a specific standard in order to meet the criteria of being a good human. That's why we have like the most beautiful people in advertisements, and we have these movies about how you should be. In my opinion, I believe that people in power, big companies, want you to feel this way in order to gain more power and control over us. The humans just want to be loved. We all value connection. Like I said, we all just want to be in a group and we all just want to be accepted for who we are. But when those standards are put out that this is how you have to be, it kind of puts a wedge in your psyche and tells you that who you are is not right. But let me tell you, who you are is right. You are not wrong at all for being who you are. And I think that the most important thing you can do is to get to know yourself, because we all have an internal compass. We all have we're all on our personal journeys, and so we need to focus less on what big companies are showing us, what the people in power are telling us that we need to do, and we need to start following our hearts. But the only way that we can do that is to get to know who we are and understand what our values are. None of us are going to fit into this perfect mold of what society tells you you have to be. You're never going to live up to that standard, and if you keep trying to live up to that standard, you're going to remain unhappy and you're going to remain anxious, because that's not who you are. It's super important that you understand your internal compass, and so you can start acting the way that you want to and stop caring what other people think. Because if we all just believed in ourselves, then eventually we would stop listening to the outside opinions and just start following our hearts, and then more people would do that. Have you ever just seen a very confident person, not because they were making fun of other people for who they were, but just genuinely happy, just a light and somebody you wanted to be around, and they didn't care what other people thought, in a healthy way, not in a insecure way. Most people try to judge those people for acting the way they are, but somehow they just keep persevering and pushing through the noise and becoming who they are. And those are the people who are the most successful in the world, because they followed their internal compass, not what society had laid out for them. So I think if we start listening to our hearts instead of what society wants us to be, we can blossom into these amazing people and the world can change. And so I am going to get started on ways that I got to know myself. I was definitely one of those people who struggled with just wanting to be perfect and wanting to fit every social norm I could. I wanted to have the best clothes. I wanted to have the nicest things. I wanted to make the most money. I was constantly having this internal battle of the person I wanted to present as versus the person who I was internally. I definitely wouldn't be making these videos right now if I was still thinking in the past. Even though I only have 12 subscribers and not many people watch my videos, it's still something that I want to do, and I'm going to keep trying because why not? It makes me happy to share my stories. And so I'm just going to go over ways that I started to get to know myself, and some of them are going to be metaphysical, some are going to be related to human behavior, but let's get started. So the first way that I started to get to know myself was through the MBTI. That is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, and they made a questionnaire, and it's 50 questions just going over the different preferences that a human might have, and you're given 4 letters. It could be introversion or extroversion, intuitive or sensing, feelings or logic, and judgment and preferences. And there's always been an argument that we are everything, and we definitely are. I am labeled as an INFJ, but of course sometimes I can be more extroverted than introverted. Sometimes I can be more logical than feelings, but it's just a test that tells you what you lean more towards. And so that was the first test that I ever took. Some other personality tests you could take there's a color test, and then the Enneagram. I think the Enneagram test is good if you want to get your kids to take the test. The Myers-Briggs test I think is okay for kids, but I think that some children have a hard time like understanding all the questions, so the Enneagram is definitely a good place to start. And then of course the color test is great for anybody of all ages. I think there's 4 colors. I don't know all of them, but I know that yellow and blue are one of them. I think I got gold or yellow for that one, and then I forget my Enneagram test. But when I first started getting into these personality tests, I took it for me, and then I made everybody else take it once I understood my type. And then I would read like what my mom's type was about, what my dad's type was about, what my best friend's type was about, and like so on, like my boyfriend's. And so that got me super involved and interested, and there's like a million videos on YouTube. I think Frank James has a bunch of videos that kind of dive in deep into the MBTI more so, and I got super into his videos and started just really understanding like who I was, and that was super cool. Another way that I started to get to know myself was through the metaphysical world, and so there's a bunch of different ways that you can do this. If you're not into astrology, then you can look up this, and I'll put links below of like websites that I used for everything that I'm talking about, but there's something called Gene Keys, and there's another way you can get to know yourself, and it's through numerology. Numerology is the idea that if you put your birthday in a row and then add it up, you get a number at the end. And so finding that number and then diving in deeper to like what that number is. My birthday is November 30th, 1995, and so it's 11 plus 3 plus 0 plus the 1995, and that comes out to 38, which equals 3 plus 8 equals 11. And so I dove deep into understanding those aspects of myself. And again, there's a bunch of videos on YouTube. Once you do find your number, you can figure out more about yourself, and it's also easy if you want to figure out your friends or your family's number for that as well. With Gene Keys, I just started tapping into this. There's not a lot of videos, but basically I think there's like 52 Gene Keys, and we all have like a lineup. Just if you're familiar with birth charts, it's kind of similar to that, but it's I guess completely different, but it's still understanding yourself. I'll put a link in that as well. And there's also a bunch of videos. Her name is called Tran Astrology or Tan Astrology, I forget, but she has a lot of good videos on gene keys, and I'll link those. And the final way is through astrology and through your birth chart. This has been one of my favorite ways to understand myself and understand the people that I love. It's important that, I mean, it's not the end of the world if you don't have your birth time, because of course, like, things happen and we don't all have our birth certificates, so totally understandable. So you can just start with what your birthday is, where you were born, and get a good breakdown of like who you are as a person through astrology. When you were born, each of the planets were lined up in a specific spot, and that contributes to your personality. That was definitely like a turning point into really understanding myself on a deeper level. So I really advocate for astrology and the metaphysical stuff, because I know there's a lot of criticisms over it, but I believe in it 100%. And so let's get on to the next. So another way that I think we can get to know ourselves on a more deep level is through our failures and mistakes. There is a quote by Carl Jung. It says that depression is like a woman in black. You wouldn't shoo her away. You would invite her in and listen to her problems and let her open up. I'm probably butchering the last part of that, but it's definitely along those lines. And I'm bringing it up because when you are upset about something, it is easy to want to refocus and only think about like your happy moments in your life, or push it away by like drinking or numbing it with drugs. But it's super important that when we are on our darkest days, that's almost like a little token from the universe, like, here's something you need to work on to become a better person. Like, what's really under the surface, and what can you learn from this? Another quote is, every rejection is a redirection. I truly believe that we are on this earth to learn lessons and become better people and grow from our mistakes. And so within both of those quotes, I think that it's super important that when we are struggling, when we do have a rejection or a mistake that happened, we don't hide it under the rug. We face it and figure out why that happened, what parts about me and what parts about the situation are not aligning, and how can I get on a better path so this doesn't happen again? How can I find the best job? How can I find the best relationship? How can I make my life better? And so I just really advocate for those hardships in your life. We don't have to throw them away. Society has taught us that we have to put on this perfect face. Instagram has taught us that we need to show the best parts of ourselves, but those parts that are challenging, those parts that make you resilient, are the most important parts of your life. And so I would just say, let's call them in instead of pushing them away. The last way I think that you can get to know yourself on a deeper level is through reflecting. The way that I reflect is usually through journaling, or sometimes I will record myself if I'm super emotional and crying. Then sometimes it's nice to just say all of your words and then watch it back and kind of find those key parts that stand out to you, that might be like little nuggets of like, oh, why am I upset, or like what's a deeper reason, what's going on. I use ChatGPT a lot when journaling. I always look up shadow journal prompts of like different things that I want to work on in my life, so that's been super helpful. I'll write some journal prompts in the description below of ways like that you can get to know yourself better through reflecting. Another is to confide in someone you trust. You could go to a therapist or talk to somebody you know who is like a neutral opinion. We live in a world where most people are very judgmental, and so having somebody that you can rely on and trust and to be a sounding board for you, so you can figure out things on your own, is super important. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching my video. I think the world would be a much better place if we all got to know ourselves a little bit deeper and started following our own journeys rather than worrying about what other people are doing. Thank you again so much, and I'll see you in the next video.